And while we get started, I want to take a moment to briefly introduce myself. My name is Nichole Hazard, and I am the Associate Director of Marketing and Communications for the HASS project. Today, I will be standing in for Vincent Medley, but I am so excited to be here with you all and these amazing panelists to talk about the Competitive Pet Placement Project. So please get a snack, sit with us. We're excited about today's conversation. To give you all some background on what the Competitive Pet Placement Project is, the HASS team has been working on this project to identify any lingering shelter operation barriers to positive adoption outcomes, aka Competitive Pet Placement Project, or as we like to call it here at HASS, CPP. CPP is really about supporting adoption outcomes and really aiming to ensure that we make it as easy as possible for animals to get out of the shelter into loving homes. So tonight, I'm really excited to have two of our panelists represent some of our pilot shelters. We have Regan Goins as well as Hubbard. And then we also have data and implementation coordinator and a member of the CPP project support team, Kate McHugh-Westfall. So we are so glad that you all are here. And to get us started, I'd love for each of you to briefly introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your shelter and your role in the project. Let's start with you, Jay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jay. I'm Jairus, but I usually go by Jay because it's a little less of a mouthful. I am the adoption supervisor at the LifeLine Dekalb animal shelter. And as adoption supervisor, I am mainly in charge of ensuring the flow of our front of house, right, and monitoring all of our adoption outcomes. I've spent about the last decade of my life working in like pet hospitality and namely in customer service. So you'll hear me borrow on that quite a bit today, but that is generally what I am in charge of, just making sure our customers are served and that our pets are met with them. That's what we do. That is me.
All right, then me. Hi guys, my name's Regan, and I am the outcomes manager at Cincinnati Animal Care. My job there is basically from intake to placement. How are we going to get them there? We cover rescue, RTOs, return to owners, and then of course adoptions or transfers out, different things that we would do there. So that's kind of me. Previous to that, I was a operations manager at a rural Ohio shelter. And then previous to that, I've worked with Maddie's Fund and was on the ground at Austin Pets Alive around Hurricane Harvey era. And I was the foster manager there and then also the dog care manager there. So lots of different perspectives to bring you today, but really excited to talk about this project. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Kate McHugh-Westfall. I'm one of the embedded data and implementation coordinators here at HASS. I've been here in this role for about 2.5 years, and I work with 8 of our HASS pilot shelters on all things data. And that could be from collecting the data to analyzing the data to helping empower our pilot shelters to use their data in a proactive way to improve overall operations and efficiency. I am quite a people person, so I love working with our shelter people. My background is in shelter volunteer management. So I think anybody that knows me knows that my favorite people to work with are animal people. I'm an animal people person. So very excited to be here with these wonderful folks who are doing so much on the ground in our shelters today.
Thanks so much, you guys. I could not agree more that really all 3 of you are incredible people persons and animal people persons. And it's really just great to be able to utilize your expertise and your perspective on this project. So we're eager to kind of dive into several questions, including some from our audience, which we'll get to at the end. So to begin, I really would love to start with you, Kate, since you were on the ground among these folks and working hand in hand on this project. Can you walk us through what the Competitive Pet Placement Project planning process looked like? What information was HASS looking for ahead of time to kind of get a game plan running?
Sure. So we really started with kind of a high level kind of overview, seeing if anyone has any low hanging fruit barriers to get out of the way. So we did an assessment on all of our shelters. And really what we were finding was that a lot of people have done the work. There are, people have done the work at removing those barriers, and we were left saying, what's next? How can we get more information? How can we go a little bit further? So we started looking at adoption numbers. Adoption rate was a big statistic, which would be the percentage of adoptions of your outcomes. And seeing that that was an area that we thought we could make some impact. But we wanted to figure out why these areas were lower than the year before. What were we missing? So we reached out to the shelters to ask if they would be collaborators in this project. And we started planning just by getting kind of the lay of their operations, understanding how a member of the public or a customer or client would interact with their shelter, from layout to kind of department structure, and the flow of the public through their shelters. To understand how we could best implement data collection in the shelter. Everyone's going to be different. If you learn anything from this, it is that this is a great concept that anyone can tailor to what they are doing. That's what we did for both Jay and Regan. And you can put this into practice today and make it work for you. So a lot of just kind of getting the lay of the land and hearing from them what they needed and what they were looking for is how we kind of started this process before we got there.
Yeah, I really love that layout of reminding everybody that no one community can have a cookie cutter solution to increasing adoption outcomes. And that's why I think this project is so special, because we have representation here, obviously, from LifeLine and Cincinnati, very different communities. So Regan and Jay, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts when you got the call that HASS was coming to town. How did you feel? Can you briefly paint a picture about, what it looked like to embark in this project, and what challenges your shelter was facing, and, what made you want to collaborate with us? Regan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I didn't get the call. I was told on my first day working with Cincinnati Animal Care that, hey, you're in HASS meetings all week.
Surprise.
Luckily, no, it's a great thing. Luckily, I was around APA and American Pets Alive when HASS was created originally, so I knew the systems, I knew what the missions were and how they would align with something like Cincinnati Animal Care. So that was really exciting. Cincinnati was in a really interesting situation where we had just come off of a distemper outbreak. And we were a couple months out from it, but as you can imagine, a distemper outbreak is going to lower those adoptions back down to a very small amount. And that's right when we need them to pick up. So I was really excited to work with the team on implementing a database structure that would give me the information on how to ramp up those adoptions again. I was really excited.
That's wonderful. What about you, Jay?
I actually had a very similar experience. I was only at LifeLine for about 2 months before we got the call from HASS. And I have to say, I was very excited. As primarily a customer service agent, I am always excited about the idea of gathering information and knowing our customers better. I always say the better you know someone, the better you are able to anticipate their needs and then meet those needs. So the idea of getting to know our customers better is fundamentally exciting for me. And I knew just from word of mouth based on what we were going, I was not familiar with the project before they came to visit us, but I was learning from my coworkers, and some of the things that they were mentioning to me were some of the main things that I was excited about implementing as the new adoption supervisor, making sure that our customers are being checked in and served efficiently, ways to match make them, these fundamental pieces that make the adoption process smoother. I was just excited that HASS and I were on the same page about those being priority. Yeah.
Absolutely.
definitely an exciting call.
That's great. I think too that that's what made it so easy for us on the HASS team to be so excited about the entire project, because it really felt like everyone was ready to be grassroots together and take a look with no judgment, eyes open, ears to listen, and just at the same level of playing field to connect with one another and make each other better. And I just really appreciate and want to reiterate that the team felt that from both of your shelters, where there's just such this sense of getting into the meat of it, understanding the data, and being able to come to solutions together. I know Kate and I both have often talked about how lucky HASS was to be able to connect with not just you all, but the other pilot shelters that participated. And so, Kate, I'd love to hear from your perspective of like why you felt it's important to be able to identify those solutions and how we landed on specifically foot traffic data.
Sure. So foot traffic data is a fancy way of saying getting data on who is coming into your building and why they are there. And did they leave with the outcome they intended? So that is something that I think we landed on that with all our shelters that participated, because everyone saw value in figuring out those questions. And we hear a lot, especially lately, oh, well, there's not enough adopters. There's not adopters. We're not sure, where are the adopters? And we wanted to see if why we were feeling that way. Was it that we really weren't seeing the adopters come through our door? Was it that there was part of the process that was making it more challenging for them to become an adopter or a foster? We didn't know, because very few people have this data. So LifeLine were actually our inspiration for a piece of this, where they had started trying to do this through JotForm. So with them, it was we were inspired. And then we said, well, let us take the learning we have and the technology we've been working on, and let's work together on it. So we were kind of gaining inspiration from them and seeing the value of that piece of information, just because no one has it right now. Everyone is doing what has worked before. And there was something missing that we were hoping to discover in this data collection at all these shelters. So that's why everyone ended up doing this particular piece.
I think you make a great point about how, especially in animal welfare, we get in the habit of doing the same things over and over again. And I know when I first heard that HASS and our pilot shelters were going to tackle foot traffic data, I thought that was such an interesting solution for us to begin to tackle, because I had not really seen that, being tackled in other atmospheres. And I imagine Regan and Jay, you maybe felt the same. I mean, how familiar were you with tracking and implementing foot traffic data work, especially specific to adoption outcomes? I'd love to hear, your perspective on implementing this and kind of beginning to tackle that. What were your thoughts on it?
I will say that in a general sense, I've been in this field and in customer service for a while, and this is actually one of the first experiences I've had where the data collection feels so specifically relevant to the goal that we are trying to achieve. I often found that the information that we would operate on in this field is sort of like a lot of people's assumptions, lots of people's experiences that are so separately, that are just disconjunct. But I appreciate the nature of this project, which insists that all these separate minds become one mind. We can get in data, we can think about it together, and we can achieve a together solution. I think you really hit on a very good point, Kate, as well, about how the nature of this business sometimes, especially in adoptions, we're always waiting on the adopter. We react to the adopter, whereas I think that now, especially if we are well informed, we can be more proactive. We can meet our adopter, like where they're at, maybe even before they get there, you know?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
definitely think it was a little new for me. I'm seeing new information, but I'm enjoying like how it can be used.
Yeah, I bet somebody who's so passionate about customer service too was like really eager to get the information in your hands because you're able then to strategize accordingly. So it sounds like it was maybe a little intimidating, but also you were down to like get into it a little bit.
Well, mhm.
That's awesome. What about you, Reagan?
Yeah, I love data because I feel like a lot of our industry rides on feeling right now. Well, I feel
Mm.
that there are more people going to this location, or I feel that this is the reason that this dog isn't getting adopted. And those feelings are great, but there's nothing you can accurately say, I'm going to do this about it when you don't have data behind it. And so I was really excited coming from a very different type of shelter, seeing the difference between rural and city, seeing the difference
Mhm.
from down south to up north. What were we actually looking at with the populations there? And I totally agree with Jay. This allowed us to not be at the mercy of our adopters, where we say, oh, the adopters aren't just coming in, or it's not the right people, or oh, we've got housing issues going on, so that's why we can't get any adopters. And we kind of just sit, and it's almost, is a
Mm.
harsh word, but it's almost an excuse for us to just sit and do nothing or do the same things that we have been working on. This gave us the data to say, okay, this person had this exact interaction and it got derailed here, which is ultimately why they didn't leave with what they wanted. And how then can I take that, see how many times that's happening, build a program to correct it?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say too that amongst your fellow staff and fellow shelter employees was the sentiment the same, or was there some hesitation and buy-in? What were y'all's thoughts on kind of getting rallying the troops behind something new like this, which we all know can be really intimidating for some people?
Mhm. I have never seen our volunteers be more eager to participate in the project. And
Yay!
and I always say, there are people, there are pets, and there are pet people. If you are know pet people, you know how passionate they can become. So for them to have been this excited and this eager to like join our hive mind of information, this data collection experience, it was wonderful. And I'll take a moment just to speak about the value of our volunteer force, like then the not only in how much they do for us, but the value of the information that they can provide for us. They are
Absolutely.
so on the ground and just in the ability to implement their knowledge, their hands-on experiences with our pets, and use that knowledge that they also had from helping bring in adopters and like gather that all in one place. It's been amazing. It's just been wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Jay, because something that, we often talk about at APA, at HASS, is that your volunteers are the reflection of your community, right? And so naturally we have some buy-in already because they decided generously to work alongside us on these efforts, but they really are the ones with the direct insight of what adopters look like, what our communities look like, what our neighborhoods look like, or opportunities that we may be missing in neighborhoods that we need to spend more time in. So I love hearing that you had that buy-in there. Did you see kind of the same, Reagan, or any challenges that you all needed to face in
I got
Cincinnati?
Yeah, I got very lucky and got into an organization where change is their thing. You
That's
give them a
awesome.
curveball, they will just run with it. And I'm so thankful for that. But I know that isn't everywhere. And so it was interesting to one, create the importance of why we were doing this. I think maybe that was a little difficulty at first because they were like, oh
Sure.
well, I just need to take care of this customer really quickly, get them through the line. And if that means they don't sign in, then they don't sign in. And it's like, no, let's just make this a part of the process, that the first thing a person walks in the door, hey, can I just have you sign in there? And then I'll be right with you. It actually works better in the customer service aspect too. And I think Jay will agree, where you are meeting the person right where they come in instead of waiting for them to get up to your desk or wherever you would meet them there. So that just took a little retraining, but I think that was good. And then the thing that I saw really kind of lift them is most of our reviews are really good. And that's really helpful for
That's
me.
a great problem to have.
That's great. But what do I need to fix? But being able to share, when specifically someone shares a review that Jordan helped them meet Bojangles out in the lot and really had a great knowledge about them, those little give me's have been really, really helping them stay super supportive of this program.
That's really great. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about just taking that one extra moment of pause to make sure that you are able to implement programming in a way that is beneficial, not just to the moment, but for the larger picture. And I think that also speaks to kind of the next steps that the data collection process through this program has given us, which is being able to, identify additional areas of opportunity to both of your points. And so, Kate, I'd love to hear more about if you could walk us through what the data analysis looked like specifically for Cincy, as some of that data revealed opportunities to have an offsite adoption event. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I spoke about how you can really customize this for you. And what we did for Cincinnati, something they wanted their sense, what they were feeling when we went in, was that there was areas of their community that they were missing from a marketing standpoint and from just a reach standpoint. So in their data collection survey, we asked for people's zip codes, and then we also asked how you heard about them. How did you hear about them to come in that day? So those were two questions that were unique for them, because that was a very specific thing we wanted to look at. And through that, we have found that there are areas where there was not the reach that we wanted or that they wanted. And they're all a little bit of mine, but that they wanted, and that there was real opportunity to connect with different parts of the community that weren't walking in the door. I think, Regan, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of folks were like, oh, well, we already knew you were here. We knew you were here before when they were coming through. So they were able to see that, hey, this is an area we can really affect by going into new communities, spreading messaging in new communities, because maybe the adopters are there, they just don't know we're here. So that is one particular for them that we saw that opportunity. And Regan may have more to add from there, but
basically, Kate, what you're saying is perfect, because Cincinnati's made into a lot of different neighborhoods. It's a very interesting place to do animal sheltering work. And you have those more high scale areas around Cincinnati that we found we're not hitting, because we just happened to be stationed in a little bit of a more poverty community. And the shelter's really old. And also what's really interesting about CAC is CAC has only existed for about 3 years. Previous to that, the same building was occupied by a completely different organization that had different values, different processes, different types of dogs and animals that they were willing to support and such. And so not only did we need to learn about those outreaching to those potentially more opportunistic regions, but when we're getting things in our little response sheet that say, yeah, I knew you were the SPCA. Oh, well, we're not. So that gives even more opportunities to educate our community about our specific mission, who we are, and why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Regan, were you surprised at all by what some of the data showed, or did it kind of align with I don't know, where you hoped you would be able to find opportunities, especially with an adoption event. I know your team was eager to be able to get into the community more. So were you surprised by that data, or were you just ready to take on the challenge of it?
I had the very unique opportunity of being hired just at this point. And so I
Hmm.
think, I had basic historical information from what I could read, from what I could glean from interviews and from the directors. But going in, I was really kind of blind or eyes open in a way. So I found that there were very different it was a different way to operate from how I did in a rural shelter, from how I did down south. Each reason is so interesting. And so in
Hmm.
that way, I was very surprised that it was like, oh yeah, we know that this location is where we get the most of our animals. And also this location is where we don't get animals adopted, or people aren't walking in here, or they're emailing us, but they're not actually coming. Different things, like we could see that.
And it's always so interesting to see those differences between, to your point, like what happens in a rural community versus even just a zip code away can be completely different. And so I appreciate that perspective, Kate, of walking us through kind of what that data analysis looked like. And I know that you all are in planning mode for the adoption event, which is taking place in April. I get to be a part of that planning, so I am very much looking forward to seeing how all of that lands. And Abby, who helps run events at Cincy, has just done a phenomenal job. So we'll be sure to share with everybody how everything turns out. But I'm very much looking forward to it. And it seems like your team is too, which is exciting.
We're so excited. It almost seems like a pot of gold if we can get into that community and get them to love
Yeah.
our population of animals. It'll be huge.
That's awesome. I hope so too. My fingers and toes and everything is crossed. And I'd love to know too, outside of foot traffic data, which is leading to some of these kind of more sustainable events or programming that's forthcoming, matchmaking was also a huge piece of the competitive pet placement project. And really, they kind of went, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, but they really kind of went hand in hand throughout all of the work that we did with our pilot shelters. Specifically, matchmaking and staff training initiatives were really huge. And so, Jay, I know your shelter at LifeLine played a huge role in that. And I'd just love to know a little bit more about your experience with that, and especially since we got to chat with close to 70 staff and volunteers throughout it. So what were your thoughts on matchmaking?
Oh my goodness, I have so many. Um,
Share them
in,
all, please.
so I will say that our shelter, and I think in a general sense, this environment, like pets, matching pets with their people, there is not a lack of passion at all. The energy has been there, the people are there. What I think really was kind of lacking was that organization. Like I said before, there are so many people in our facility who have like their favorite dogs and the dogs that they know would go well with these people, this place. Like they're walking around with such useful information just kind of in their heads. And this initiative has given us the ability to just gather it into one place. I want to say it was a brilliant experience, like seeing everyone like be introduced to Asana and to really get on one accord about what are the things that are namely stopping someone from taking a pet from us, and how do we make these pets ready to go to their homes, and what does it mean to communicate that to everyone. Unfortunately, you can never guarantee what the exact experience of someone is going to be in a shelter. I always say that going into an animal shelter is going to be a memorable experience. So we should strive to make it a positive one. And we really are our customers' guides towards finding their forever friend. And if we want to be good guides, then we need to make ourselves prepared, having the right tools so that we can meet our customers, meet their needs is just so essential. And the introduction of these like matchmaking tools has just been amazing. I'll say we were honest genuinely right before the introduction of the use of Asana and all the matchmaking tools there, we were developing just like a sheet, a single sheet for the adoptions team
Right.
that we were gathering, like our dog tickets. We call them our getting to know the dog tickets, like so that we could start to gather that hive mind of information. And it's been wonderful to have this much smoother smoother pathway towards
Well,
access.
it goes back to your point about proactivity versus reactivity, I think, and your desire to make sure that you and your team are set up with that kind of sustainable success. And you mentioned Asana. For everyone who may not be familiar, can you walk us through what that is and how you guys were using it and perhaps how it's being utilized now?
Yeah, I was not overly familiar with Asana before it was very well introduced to me and during those few days of training with HASS. And essentially what it is a tool that allows us to section out and gather information about our pets in a way that is easily accessible and namely filterable. It gives us the ability to search for our pets in the ways that our adopters think about our pets. We find animals in our shelter because we walk around it every day and we know where they are. We know like the sounds, the feels, we move, but our customers don't have that same option. They come to us and they're expecting us to lead them through. Asana essentially is a virtual guide that gives us the ability to translate. So they ask us, can I get a small pup? Asana can show you pups under a certain weight, It is
Yeah,
just a information gathering.
that's great. And I know it also helps from like a project management POV too, that you're able to just kind of communicate directly within it. Everyone's updated at the same time. And that way, if you're communicating from one department to another, nothing really gets lost. So it seems. And so I'm hopeful that that is what you guys continue to experience. I know that training for a lot of these tools was a huge part of matchmaking. So Kate and Jay, do you have any thoughts on, kind of what that training looked like and how it was received? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. I would say our like I said, our volunteers and our staff are so passionate about these things that when they were presented with an opportunity to think as one, to gather the information that they've already been wanting, they jumped right at the opportunity. So many questions, everyone was very eager, and I just enjoyed seeing, even outside of our training sessions, I'll overhear like conversations between the volunteers and the staff, helping each other to utilize these tools better. So it's created this wonderful like community of knowledge seekers. Like, how can we better know our pets? And so it was there. It was great. It was a great reaction.
Just no matter what the tool, the why of the tool is really important in the training, and understanding what the tool is there for. A piece of this project that I really love is the accessibility to anyone, right? So for our the foot traffic tracking, we used Google Form and Google Sheets. That is free. If you have Microsoft, you can use Microsoft Form and Excel. If you have neither, you can use a piece of paper. If you
Right.
are, want to be extra fancy, you can use Airtable. There are so many ways to do this, that whether you are a rescue that is one room and you're open 2 days a week, or you are a multi-site facility that is, does, 15, 20,000 animals a year, there is a way for you to implement these things and get the value out of them at all levels. So, and the why is the same, right? You want to understand who is coming in, what they're looking for, and if they didn't leave the intended outcome, then how you can improve that. So that is that why, and keeping it focused on that why, no matter what your tool, I think is the most helpful thing in training. One of the most helpful things in training.
I would argue too that leaning into the core of the why is really what keeps the whole program running. Understanding the why and understanding the purpose behind it, and remembering to um, keep our focus on the core of the why is often what keeps programs running. And I know that gets really difficult in the day to day and the daily operations and the millions of fires shelter staff are putting out, or you have a distemper outbreak, you have a natural disaster, you have maybe just a really bad day and you're not able to give your 100%. And all of those factors play into not only the training, but the sustainability of any new program. And so I know often implementing new programs like these, data, foot traffic data, matchmaking, that can be the easy part. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Regan and Jay, on the sustainability of these initiatives. How do you think they'll change? How do you think they'll adapt as time goes on? Or, to Kate's point, it's all customizable. So do you see you finding your own way through it all? What are your thoughts on that? How about you, Regan?
Yeah, I am a software junkie in terms of I will find whatever software is out there and ask, how can I use it for an animal shelter?
Mm-hmm.
And the software that is out there, guys, in terms of Asana or Monday.com or these other options are hugely sustainable. AI is getting really, really, really smart and can really, really be helpful to us. I think if you're not scared of the robots, I totally understand. but
Right.
yeah, there are so many things out there. Jay hit on the number one thing that you can do, which is volunteers, volunteers, volunteers. This program could completely be run by volunteers if you have the SOPs, the training, and the base, and just ask us for those, and we are more than happy to share. The sustainability and the growth, I think, of this program is what's really exciting.
Mhm. I agree. The main point for me in the sustainability of specifically initiatives like this, and this one in particular, is that it's so people centric. Even though we are gathering this data in a digital way, we are trying to just coalesce so much knowledge. That knowledge is based in what we all know. It can grow with us because we are the ones inputting. We are the ones who are making those changes. So the question is like, how will it grow? How will it change? How is it sustainable? I think as long as that why, as long as that passion is sustained, then stuff like these tools will grow with us. That's kind of like the point of AI. It learns, it grows, it changes, just like we do.
I love that perspective, Jay, because you're hitting home on something that often shelters forget, which is how do we keep our perspective on both the pets and the people? And I know you all know this, but we say it all the time that pet problems are people problems. And so if we can identify what the people need and why they are the ones coming into the shelter, often we have all of our questions answered. So I'm glad to hear, you both say that there's opportunity to learn and grow and adapt as the program continues, and that you get to make it your own based upon kind of that reflection of your community. Would you say that that's the case?
100%. I think that even just in the short time that we've been utilizing these systems, we've already made some changes that I think are better serving bits of our community. And specifically at LifeLine Dekalb, we have a large population of Hispanic and Spanish speaking like clients. And while we didn't have the questions for them like written like in their language immediately, we noticed the need and we adjusted. And now we are better serving that section of our community. Which just in a general sense, I will say was one of my major focuses coming into this facility. If you've ever visited our shelter, you know that we have like that area of our clientele was likely being underserved, and I can happily say that that is no longer the case.
That's awesome. That
Mhm.
is so great to hear.
Mhm.
I know too that we are already receiving some questions from our audience, and I'd love to run through some of those with you all. So please, everybody, feel free if you do have any questions to continue adding them in the Q&A function. So let me go ahead and pull some of these up. We have one question from an anonymous attendee asking for a little bit more background specifically about foot traffic data, kind of understanding what exactly that is. What did we specifically do, Kate? So I think this is going to be a great question for you. And then what happened when a person walked into the shelter? How did they experience collecting foot traffic data? Can you speak on that?
Sure. So pretty simple. So for the shelters we did this project with, we used a Google form. We created a Google form and had a spreadsheet attached to that form. And we collaborated with our shelters to have people information, name, zip code, phone number, or email, and what are you here for today? If someone said, I'm here to adopt or foster a pet, we asked if they knew who it was. So just a form for them to fill out. And on the back end, once someone filled that out, it would populate into a spreadsheet for customer service staff. For Cincinnati, we utilized iPads because they had them available for us. Other places we use QR code posters. And so either one. So if someone could walk up to the desk or the lobby area, sign in on the iPad or use their phone to sign in on a QR code, and then that would populate the sheet for the customer service folks who would then assist them. And then the customer service folks were saying whether they left with a pet or not. So that's how we're capturing that information. Also, at the end of the day, anyone that came in would get an email or text sent to them asking them to fill out a follow-up survey that discussed their customer experience. So pretty straightforward. But I will let the folks that see it in action every day talk more about how it works in action for them.
I'll say our customers interact with it in a pretty traditional sense. Like you said, at our facility, they use their phone typically with a QR code to input that data, and it is the job of our concierge to fill out that back end, our end of the response. I'll take a moment to say that is just another area of like where we were able to grow in utilizing the system. We were able to get some tablets that we now use to help some of our older and more in need clients to get through their inputting that information. And I find too that it often is a good opportunity to ask these questions and get to know the client. A lot of the times that questionnaire, at least in our facility, becomes a little bit of an interview. We're filling out the information for them, and we're starting off that process of initiating the matchmaking before they even come on in. So that's kind of how we're utilizing it at our facility.
Yeah, very similar. So we have an iPad, we have a QR code, we have a lot of different capabilities and how you can fill this out. One thing that we immediately noticed in Cincinnati is people want to move fast. They want to get in and out. And from the shelter that was previously there, they were able to just walk in and go and look at dogs and come out and be like, I want this one or whatever. Well, we wanted to be a little bit more personable, and honestly, we keep a population that probably needs a little bit more matchmaking, and we want to be able to provide that top dollar customer service to them, not just, hey, throw you a dog that you think you want, and oh, by the way, it has all of these issues or whatever. So we were able to do that. That's been pretty easy. We're able to, like Jay said, help clients, and we also use it as sort of a mini matchmaking tool, and that I should know a little bit about your household by the time you come up to my desk, and I can kind of prep how I want to approach that matchmaking process with you.
And I think what's interesting with Regan is a few weeks in, you found that folks were feeling like they wanted to go faster, right?
Yes.
So they were like, oh, so that's what's nice about being able to customize it to your needs. So we went in and we said, okay, we know what we absolutely need. So we can make some of these questions optional if someone doesn't feel like putting them in. And we added a bar at the end that told them you're 25, 50, 75% of the way done. Give the illusion of going fast. And it seemed to have helped. So again, if there's anything that I can convince people of out of this is start collecting data, see what it says. There's so many different ways to do this that work for you. And it's just like exciting to find out what you didn't know.
I think that's such a great perspective from really all three of you, because you're hitting home on the fact that the actual implementation of data of tracking foot traffic data can be intimidating at first, but it's also adaptable specific to your needs. So knowing that there may be resistance from customers in certain aspects, or there may be needs in certain areas, you're able to adapt those things. And another question that's similar to that we got in our Q&A is asking, to get foot traffic data, are you counting visitors by hand and intercepting people to survey them, or how do you actually meet the customer when you go through this process with them? Who wants to take that one?
So I believe the question is asking, like, how are we getting the survey into our customers' hands, and what does it look like for them to fill it out? And I believe that's kind of the first step in that proactive experience. They come in, we greet, we offer it to them. Would you please sign in here for us? If you need any help. So I would say there is an aspect of that is intercepting, but it's mostly just, at least the way that we take it in our facility, it's a part of that greeting. It's a part of welcome in, let's get you started, here's where you start. And that helps, I think, that beginning portion.
Yeah, I think we really have to remember as animal shelters that we are a business. And when you walk into a business and someone may ask you, hey, can you just do this before you go to step B? This is step A, then you go to step B. We have the ability to say that to our customers. A lot of times I think we're like, oh my God, just make it the easiest process ever and whatever they want and all of that. You have the power, and it's not going to turn people off for you to be able to organize how the public meets you and how the public goes through your process. So like I said, everyone on our team is trained. They hit that door. There's a QR code that says, please check in right there. If they miss that, I'm going to be, hey guys, thank you so much for coming in. If I could just have you sign in on that iPad or use that QR code. If you're having trouble, let me know, and then we'll get right with you. Okay. First touch of contact, I'm getting them immediately at the door so they feel like there's no wait time to being processed. And also, I am starting a journey that I can now control and guide through the shelter instead of just being at the whim of everyone.
Right. And it's super similar to what, the average Joe would experience through a healthcare system. If you go into a hospital, you're going to be met at a checkout counter, or you may be met by a poster that tells you and guides you where to go. So it's not something that they are unfamiliar with. It's just in a new environment. I think you guys implemented that really well to be something that is recognizable. Another question from James was, did CPP include retention measures, post-adoption satisfaction measures, or other follow-up measures to measure the downstream effects of changing welcome adoption policies? Kate, would you like to touch on that?
In a perfect world, it would, but we limited our scope for this project. But hey, email us if you have some ideas. I'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. And I think the other element of that too, in terms of retention measures, is the ability for us to continue collaboration with our pilot shelters. What's so great about our partnership with them, and such as you all, is that it's an ongoing conversation. And so this direct support doesn't stop when we leave the shelter. It's an ongoing process so that truthfully our team can learn from you all and improve upon the project, learn how we can better measure or improve upon success. So I would say that that it's a continued collaboration, and as these teams like LifeLine and Cincy continue to implement this programming, we'll be able to measure benchmarks of success all along the way.
I would like, can I give a little, so to that person that asked that question, a few weeks ago, we actually put out a really wonderful blog post about some data insights we had to returns and retention, and some very actionable items to help in that area. So I would definitely check that out. We do look at those things, not as part of this project, but as the HASS data team overall. So just a little plug for that.
You can also, what CIC has done is we've implemented this process on the back end as well. So any sort of return, our community support team has their own check-in process. So we're able to take that data from adoption 3 months ago and see, oh no, Jareen is returning or having trouble with whatever dog, and what are the systems that we do take in place to circumvent that, prevent a return, help rehoming, intake diversion.
And I will say, customer retention is one of my favorite topics of discussion. And I believe that it really often boils down to forming a relationship with your client. Good customer service is the thing that is going to make you return to a store, to do anything, to volunteer, to donate your time, maybe to foster or adopt another dog. And those, I believe that the first step in forming that relationship and best serving our customers is to know them well, to gather information on them, to be familiar with our communities and with our clients. That in treating them well, that is going to get them to return. You know.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the questions in our Q&A is really related to that, Jay, which is how would you say that this project or this program improved customer service and or adoption rates so far? I think that question can also go toward, not just the customer experience, but how would you say like your fellow staff is feeling it's improved customer service training for them, if at all? What would you say to that?
Oh, I believe, at least in our facility, it has been the change. I hesitate to say night and day, but it can sometimes feel that way. We've been going through a lot of changes in our facility in particular, like with staffing and like adjusting SOPs and making changes to smooth out some of these processes. And the utilizing these tools, having a clear standard of like what's expected, being able to get someone on a job and like have them really like take over and like master it and be able to use a tool that is signed for the job that they're doing has been just wonderful. It's just less guessing. I can feel in like the entirety of the staff that we are all just like having a better experience interacting with these procedures maybe than we were a little bit earlier.
Yeah. As a manager, it helps me manage in the sense of CIC has multiple different locations. And at the start of this venture, we were noticing our Dane location was getting higher foot traffic. Well, then we do some renovations at Dane. We move some animals around, some departments around, and we thought all the foot traffic was going to go back to Dane because of the certain population that we wanted to put there. That's not happening. Our Coleraine location is actually way busier, and I'm starting to get those little comments of more people at the desk would be helpful, more people at the desk. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. Let me switch around my staff in a little bit.
I love that feedback too, because you're able to hear directly from your staff in real time, like what their needs are, and compare that directly to what the data is showing. And then that way it just improves everyone's experience. You really can't argue with your staff being a little bit more excited to come in the morning and connect with the public, and it just makes everyone's lives a lot easier. And another question here kind of somewhat related is how you feel that these programs, or what operational changes has the data inspired, and what were your biggest takeaways from it? So I think what this question is getting at is, did this inspire other areas in your shelter that you may want to dig deeper into, either data or similar programming?
I will say the biggest thing that I've definitely noticed is there is much more inspiration to know our pets very well, to have that to get that firsthand knowledge of those babies. Now that there is somewhere to put that info, now that there is like a real path towards turning how much time I spent with Javian this morning into getting Javian into a forever home, there is just more there's more excitement about like making that connection. So that's the biggest thing that I've noticed.
Yeah, it's kind of a game for them. They, for the people up at the front desk, they're like, okay, I got this many people in this day, and look at my conversion rate. Wow, I turned over this many people. These many dogs get to sit now in a home and relax with cuddles and love, and not in the horrible kennel, no matter how good we try to make it. That's been huge. Like I said, we took this process to our community support, which is basically our intake, and how we're able to align that data. I have been able to make, like I said, managerial decisions on, okay, well, this type of population of person tends to end up at Dane rather than at Coleraine, and who on my team do I place there who could really thrive with that kind of person, and how can I cater to these different locations, these different populations? So I think it's been amazing, and we're just there's so much. Like I said, it just can keep growing. You could grow this throughout your whole shelter as a program and be all aligned, and it would be really cool.
That's amazing. I love that. And then what a perfect way to close our discussion too, of just feeling really inspired by each other's work, watching how you customize it along the way. And I want to reiterate too, some other questions in the Q&A we're asking if SOPs would be available and follow-up data would be available. The answer is yes. I'm really excited to share that HASS will be releasing case study information about the CPP project, which will outline really all the initiatives that we were able to undertake with our pilot shelters. So you will get all the nitty-gritty details of the how and the why and the problems we're trying to solve, and then also get some SOPs and really tangible tools to take with you so that you're able to implement either something similar or something that's, again, customizable to you. So be on the lookout for that. And I just really want to take a moment as we wrap to say thank you to both you, Regan and Jay, for leading the charge in your shelters and doing the great work. And of course, Kate, I know you have just been on the ground from the beginning. So thank you so much to all three of you for being here tonight. And then lastly, our next webinar is going to be on March 28th to discuss the HASS playbook. So we look forward to having that discussion with you all there. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great evening.